What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Van Chats on the Out of Bounds Network. I'm sitting here with what, four-time Olympian, right? Ed Clancy. Is it
That's
four?
right. Four-time Olympian, but only 3 gold medals, I'm afraid.
But only three gold medals. And, you know, he's got cool things after his name, the OBE. We don't have those kinds of things in America, which can you tell me a little, I'm just going to start the podcast off that way. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that? You are a part of the British Order, right? Or am I saying
That's
that right?
right.
Or did I butcher it?
No, we were close enough. So, yeah, over here in the UK, if you do something that is considered either charitable or you've gone over and above for Queen and country, then as far as I know, there's 4 main steps of the ladder, if you like. So generally speaking, you'll get 1 gold medal. You get an MBE, which means you're a member of the British Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look into ancient history, it actually enables me to walk my sheep across London Bridge or something like that.
All right. Right on.
But,
how many sheep you got, Ed?
Yeah, well, I don't have any, funnily enough. But yeah, in terms of its day-to-day practical use, I'm not sure it gives you much of that. And then the second rung of the ladder is an OBE, Order, I think, of the British Empire.
Yeah.
And then it's a CBE. It might be a colonel or something in the British Empire. And then you generally get a knighthood or a damehood.
Oh, wow.
You know, when you reach the pinnacle of the hierarchy.
Oh, right on.
I'm not sure how many sheep that enables you to move across London, but
right on, man. No, but like I said before we even started this podcast, I mean, so I ride Team Pursuit here in the States. I mean, you're a guy that I've looked up to even when I started racing, and that was I started watching bike racing in 2008. So, I mean, you know, I watched you race the Omnium, watched you race Team Pursuit. But man, you know, since I've been in the sport, there's probably not another person where I can think has been in the sport as long as you have and has done as much as you have. I mean, cycling is pretty much all you know, wouldn't you say?
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, hell, you were just telling me how you retired after the Champs League, and you were in Spain just a week ago helping out the Brits yet again. So what was that like, diving back into camp, but I guess behind a steering wheel and in some jeans?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, first things first, you're right. I mean, cycling is all I know. I mean, even when I was a kid, I did a paper round. That's the only job I've had other than being a professional cyclist. And I even did that on my bike thinking about it. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time, 20 years pretty much from start to finish, you know, trying to ride bikes and eventually sort of making it onto the talent team we have over here in Britain, then the junior program under 23. And you never really look sideways, you know, to think about the afterlife at all. I mean, you know how it is, John. You know, cycling's it's a competitive thing, and there's a lot of people that want your job. So, if there's one thing that it's a cliche, isn't it? I just loved it.
Yeah.
And you know, I never wanted to do anything else. And of course, there's times where it's hard, and you know, especially over here in the UK in winter, it's raining sideways for 6 hours. But I mean, that's hard, but it's also hard work sitting in an office and thinking, you know, what might have been. And yeah, I always thought when I started cycling that, you know, even if I could just scrape a living, it'd be a living worth scraping. And you know, even if there was no future in it, there was no jobs in the afterlife coaching or anything like that, you know, then at least I'd have had a youth worth remembering.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that said, it feels weird, mate. You know, it feels strange to be finished. And, you know, you get up in the morning and instead of sort of going to Training Peaks as your go-to diary, you know, you open up Microsoft Outlook on your laptop and you think, what Zoom calls have I got today? What phone calls do I need to make? Who haven't I emailed that I need to get back to? And it's a completely different way of like ordering your life, and it just changes like that. And yeah,
well, it's funny because like you're saying this to me now, and so yeah, I'm still in the sport, and so the reason why I was like so interested to get you on the podcast is one, I've thought about trying to get you on the podcast before, and I saw you drop the Pursuit line, this new venture that you're kind of going out on, and it made me think. I wonder how many times, like, because GB, at least from like the outside looking in, it looks like there's like a higher turnover, at least in the team pursuit, right? Like you're either like, because once they're done with, like, look at Matt Walls. Like Matt Walls is already, riding for Bora, right? And so it's like you're in the world tour, or you kind of stay in the team pursuit, or you're kind of done, right? Wouldn't you say? And so you probably saw a lot of friends quit the sport and they tell you about their new career and them looking at Zoom calls and not looking at Training Peaks anymore. So what was that kind of like, I guess, while you were still in the sport, while you were seeing some friends and teammates leave,
Yeah.
to still stay motivated, I guess, more or less?
Yeah. In terms of, who the Great Britain cycling team has in the team pursuit, for example, I mean, there's no hard and fast rules to say, look, if you're a road rider, then you can't ride the team pursuit, or vice versa. There's never been any sort of rule on commitment. You've seen guys like Brad sort of drop into the track relatively late, Geraint Thomas.
Yeah.
Matt Walls has sort of gone from the track to the road, but he was still out there in Spain last week training with the track team. So there's no rule about making the team pursuit other than you have to be, the top
Good.
4 or 5 guys in the country at that point in time. And if you hit that criteria, you're in. It doesn't discriminate in terms of what other activities you've going on or anything like that. It's always been, and this is probably something that Dave Brailsford started a long time ago. It was always a very evidence-based thing. There was no friends, there was no loyalty. It was just a case of, if you do the numbers, if you're good enough, from a science point of view, you'll be there. And if you're not, I mean, it's sport. Sport is by definition an elitist thing,
Yeah.
and you're not at the very top. There's only so many places to fund riders. There's only so much love to go around in terms of support and bikes and logistical help and things like that. So, I mean, like you said, I've seen friends come and go, and you're still friends with them. You're just not work colleagues, I guess. And that's one of the more difficult sides of the game. But when you look outside of sport as well, it's the same in business. Business is a cutthroat world, and it's tough at the top there as well, I can imagine.
Oh yeah. Well, just like you said, everybody's out for your job. Everybody's a cycling coach in the cycling world, man. Everybody's got their own little gig, and so it is cutthroat, man. It is one versus all, But yeah, so that being said, the pursuit line. Let's dive into a little bit of the pursuit line. We'll dive a little bit more into your career and your past, but yeah, tell us a little bit about the pursuit line. I just saw it pop up, and it wasn't even as much cycling coaching as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just like, oh, here's another retired cyclist with their coaching company. And I'm surprised you even found the word pursuit in a domain in England, because it just seems like that's all you guys live for. It's time trials and pursuits out there anyway. So yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, pursuit line. So this started a long time ago. When you're a cyclist, a professional cyclist, I think, quite early on in your career, even if it's subconsciously, people tend to identify what it is that's helping them be a good bike rider. For some people, it's having a good coach and a good training program.
Yeah.
And, for a lot of it, that's the vast majority. For other people, they'll find big gains in nutrition. People will find gains in sleep, things like that. For me, there was a fellow called Steve Peters in the Great Britain cycling setup who was a psychologist. And I engaged with him. I read the books that he told me to read. I did the homework that he told me to do. And for me, this is not going to be the same for everyone, but for me personally, sort of the mindset work I did with Steve all those years ago, it kind of, a little light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, obviously it's important to have a good coach, a good race program, good training program. It's important to sleep well, to eat well. But, quite quickly, I identified that as perhaps the most important thing in, performing on the big day under pressure. That takes a certain mindset. You know, we've already spoke about going out in the rain, you know, when it's hailing for, you know, 6 hours straight. You know, that's not so much a physical challenge. It's a mind game. And, you know, doing it year in, year out. And, you know, it can be a relatively tough place at times. But if you've got the right sort of mindset and, you know, you're looking at the world through the right set of eyes, then it's a great way to make a living. It's a wonderful opportunity. And, you know, any day you spend riding your bike as a professional cyclist is a great one. So, you know, I enjoyed working with Steve. And when Steve left the program, I sought out another sort of human performance consultant to work with. And the road team I was riding with, JLT at the time, coincidentally met some human performance practitioners, you know, that do the whole mindset thing, and they'll help you understand not only the way that you think, but the way your teammates think and your managers think, so how we can all sort of work together well. And yeah, again, just another little light bulb went off, and I was like, you know, I need this in my life again. So I worked with Pro Noctis, was the company in question, and after 3 or 4 years, I became an ambassador for them. Partly because, you know, they thought I had something to bring to them, but, you know, also it worked both ways. I used those guys to, you know, help me through Rio and Tokyo in my final years. And yeah, it's just something I've always believed in. I always thought made the biggest difference. You know, not just to the color of medal that you had in your hand at the end of the day, but how much you enjoyed it. And that's important to me too. And, you know, when I finished, you know, finished after the Track Champs League a couple of weeks ago. In my head, I really finished, you know, in Tokyo in August.
I was kind of thinking the same thing, but you were on the board, right? I guess, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, let's say, you know, my heart had sort of like, that was the last big one in August. Yeah. Say that. And yeah, after that, Phil Kelly, the guy that owned Pro Noctis, the performance consultancy business, he said, right, Ed, you know, we can keep on doing what you're doing. You know, you can continue to be an ambassador and do talks and things like that. And, you know, help me out with my clients, and I'll help you out in return for whatever you want to do in the future. Or, you know, we can start something together called Pursuit Line. So, you know, it's called Pursuit Line because, like, you know, all performance consultants will, you know, have a reference point, you know, for this is where you're trying to be. And, you know, is the pursuit line is our data point. And that's our reference for, you know, is this success? Are we a 10th up, or are we a bit behind schedule here? And it's always about checking in with your coach. So that's why the name Pursuit Line came around. And, you know, for me personally, the Pursuit Line has been my reference point in life really for the last 15 years or so. So, yeah, it's a performance consultancy business. We do inspirational, motivational talks from myself. We'll do online workshops, probably mainly led by Phil and his team. And we're also able, via Phil again and his team, to deliver consultancy programs into businesses and things like that. It's something I'm doing a bit more of. You know, I've got a few courses booked in January, February, to do a bit of learning myself. Try and use my brain for the first time in 20 years.
Keeping you honest, man. Keeping you honest.
Exactly, yeah. And then eventually I'll hopefully be a full part of the team and able to deliver the same stuff Phil can. And at the same time, you know, Phil's from a military background. So he was in the Marines for a long time. He left early, set up this company, and, you know, he's kind of like installs the things that he learned from the military into the business world. And I'm going to hopefully try and bring the sporting aspect forward as well, and just both try and combine our life lessons and put it out there. For
well, because I'm listening to you and you're like, yeah, one thing, you know, that not that you struggled with, and maybe you did struggle with it, but one thing that you felt like you needed to work on was your mindset, which is nuts to me, because either that or it worked. I mean, you had, you know, 8 world records that are listed here on Wikipedia, and then, you know, multiple world championships, three gold medals. You went to the Olympics 4 times. And in that process, I mean, you know, a lot of people that are listening to this podcast that are cycling fans and enthusiasts, we've seen the sport, like the sport from 2008 to the sport that we know now, especially in the pursuit, like with bikes and technology. I mean, man, we used to ride our aero bars straight down and us riding a beach cruiser practically, and now our hands are buried in our face, and we're riding. You went from 92-inch gears to 130-inch gears or whatever the hell that is. It's insane. And so, did you feel like your mindset had to change from 2008 to 2020, 21 even? You know what I mean? Like, or is it just, or is that a part of the mindset? Adapting.
Yeah, I think in my youth, it was more a case of like managing nerves on the day. Actually, let's go back to your first point. From the outside, it might have looked like, you had everything under control, and it's easy to kind of look at a load of stats and be like, wow, this guy, he's always had everything under control. But,
because that's the way I thought. Like, I literally watched you and I was like, this is one of the best team pursuiters in the world. Like, starter, man, two, whatever. And then, but broken back, injuries, like, all these things. So you're saying your mindset was more the day than it was actually everything else around it? Or
what I'm saying is, in the same way that, someone can have a baseline of fitness here,
mm-hmm.
and then with, X amount of hours of intensity and top end work and gym work and, aerodynamic testing, they can have a physical performance up here. It's the same with the mind. You're going to have people who's got have a baseline of fitness that's right up here, and they're just naturals. They're naturally fit. And it's the same with the mind. You're going to have people that's, mindset's just up here. They've just got it. They perform under pressure. They can see, they can see the sunshine on the worst of days. They can always see the positives in life. And to be honest, I think in terms of mindset, my baseline was, it's not massively low, but it was, average at best. And for sure, there was some headroom that I could have made. And I like to think I did. Even before we got to Beijing, I was engaging in that sort of stuff. Because as you know, John, when you sat there on the start line and you've put 4 years of work into one 4-minute ride, and it's team pursuit is, by far the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done, and it's worse than getting up to your home Olympics and doing an omnium, an individual event, because there's so much more resting on it. You've got 3 of your best mates that have done exactly the same thing as you, and you've gone through hell and back to get there, and then you sat on the start line looking across the other side of the track, at the Australian lads that you beat once in the last 4 years, and you can't just go out there and sort of rip around aimlessly for the first 2 laps. You've got to hit that first half a lap within a 1/10 of a second. You've got to hit your second split within a 1/10 of a second. You've got to, hunker down into your bike, get your shoulders narrow, get your head down, look at where you're going to change on the track. Make sure you don't miss that first change, because that's going to hurt you. And if you lose half a lap on your second turn, that's going to cost your teammates. And then, there's an awful lot going on in your head. So, like I said, I think the time that I spent sort of training my mind somewhat to cope with those situations was time well spent.
No, that's super cool. And in the sense of, because I kind of want to dive into 2021. I mean, you had a very successful career. When you came into Beijing, who was, because I'm assuming that the younger guys in 2021 were looking to you, like they were looking to you for advice. They were looking to you to almost help them be stress-free. I mean, we had a little bit of that even with the US team, with some of the older guys that had traveled. Like some of us, first time being in Europe was with Team USA. And so that being said, who was that guy for you? Who was the guy that kind of like, hey, Ed, it's going to be all right, and, kind of took you under the wing?
Yeah, Phil Kelly from Pro Noctis. That was my man. And I was fortunate that I'd been working with him for years already. And, this is not something you sort of do on the big day. You don't ring him up in a big panic, the day before qualifying, saying, you know what, Phil, I ain't got this. I don't feel good. My back's in a state, and I'm going to let myself and the team and management and everybody down around me. It's, again, like the physical stuff. You don't just turn up on the day of the race and give it a big, act of heroics and emotion. And, the person that tries hardest wins on the day. It's just not like that. It's, you've got to put the time and effort in, for months and years, if not decades before the big day. So that, yeah, when you do get to those situations, you're not totally reliant on, in my case, Phil Kelly sort of looking after you,
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of like coaching you through those moments. You should be somewhat self-sufficient at that point. At least
Yeah.
that's the theory anyway, John.
No, yeah, no, that makes sense. And so I guess coming into 21, you guys weren't the only team that had a bad day. Like it was actually what? There's 8 teams. I would say probably 5 out of the 3 had a bad day. And
Yeah.
even then, some of the guys that were having what looked to be good days, they would even say they had a bad day.
Yeah.
So that all being said, like, how did you, because, let's be honest, we've never seen GB show up to the Olympics with a bad day. Like it just, or at least in my career. And so what was it like to kind of work with those younger guys and kind of, because you're kind of dealing with your own stuff too, right? This is your last Olympics. It's probably emotional for you. What was it like dealing with those younger guys to kind of keep them on track and keep their heads straight?
Yeah, you know what? For me to take credit for how those guys have, of course, like people look to the elder statesmen in the team, both the riders and the staff, to make key decisions at certain points in time and to kind of lift the spirits of the team and to be the sort of wise old owl when, it comes to the big day. But all of those lads, they're just winners. They're just born winners. Ethan Hayter, Ethan Vernon. They're not only like physically brilliant, they're just, I don't know what they've done right, but they get things done. They perform on the big day, and yeah, of course they get nervous, but they've always stayed strong under pressure. And I think the only thing I had to do for the 2 Ethans was hold up a mirror now and again and say, look, lads, this is how good you are. And, there's no reason to fret. Fact, logic, reason, when people start losing their mind, always bring it back to that. If people say, oh no, it looks like we're going to lose the Olympics, we're going to have a bad day, things haven't been going great in training. You just say, look, funnily enough, lads, there's an awful lot of things in life that are outside your control. No matter what you wish it to be or want it to be, if for whatever reason you've got a threshold of 420 on the day rather than 460, if for whatever reason your lactic tolerance is down, your body's under a state of stress that it's might be fighting off a small virus, you might be carrying a back injury, that you're not sleeping so well, what can you do about it in that point in time? There's very few things when you really boil it down that you've actually got full control over in life. The one thing you have got control over is what you're going to do, on the big day, when the flag goes, and it's like, all you can do, it's a cliche again, is you do your best. Can you do it better than that? No, you can't by definition. So, it's not worth losing sleep over. And yeah, so the 2 Ethans took care of themselves, honestly. Again, with Ollie, when Ollie did have a bit of a flap now and again, I think it's fair to say, but the thing you had to remind Ollie about was, he's made me laugh sometimes because, we've all seen riders like, they're halfway around an effort and they'll throw the towel in either on the road or the track, and if they're having a bad day. But Ollie would, whether it be a pointless training effort or a big dress rehearsal or an Olympic final, I've never ever seen him throw the towel in. He'll just fight till he's not got a single watt of energy left remaining in his body. And when he has a bit of a question or doubt in his mind, you've just got to remind him of that. He never gives up. And it's just showing them the mirror. And
no, that's impressive. Yeah. And so that all being said, like I said, you've experienced a lot, you've been through a lot. What was probably one of the best world championships, or one of the things that you will always take away with you in your career?
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot to choose from, John. Which is, I guess it's a good problem to have. But a couple of races I'd say really stood out. There was I had a bit of a back injury, and I'd say a bit is an under exaggeration. I had a back injury. I had a prolapsed disc in my back in December 2015. And, you know, at that point in time, we're only 8.5, 9 months away from the Olympics. And so I don't know if your listeners are kind of half familiar with how the body works, because I certainly wasn't. But, you know, in between your vertebrae, you've got these little sort of jam donuts that you disc in the back, and one of mine popped. And the problem was, it got to the extent where there was so much pressure on my nerve in my right leg that we had what you call foot drop. So you're not just getting hot and cold sensations in your leg, and your sort of skin feels like rubber. So you lose the sensory stuff first, which is fine, really. But as soon as you lose the motor function of your leg, you're that's essentially like your leg's paralyzed. You know, I had a leg that didn't work. So
that had to be kind of scary, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's scary for a lot of reasons. It's scary because you want to win the Olympics, you want to defend your title. It's scary because you've got a mortgage to pay at that point, and you've got dependents looking at you to, you know, provide a living. And it's also scary because you want to walk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was more or less thinking, let's forget about cycling. Let's forget about the mortgage for a second. But like just walking to my mailbox would be nice. Like I would appreciate that, you know?
Exactly. So when we had foot drop, it was a bit of a red light situation, and we were rushed back from a mountaintop in Tenerife to an operating table. And it's quite a simple operation, but it's not something they do, because, you know, any sort of operation around your back and your nerves is something you'll
gets a little weird.
Yeah, because if it goes wrong, you know, it'd be a permanent thing. So yeah, it was a difficult 9 months, you know, from that operating table to ultimately winning the Olympics in Rio. And, you know, when people see it on TV, they see a tough race. They see, you know, one of the all-time great battles with the Brits versus the Aussies, and, you know, it all came down to a few tenths of a second in the end. But yeah, man, every day of my life was a fight, you know, from those last 9 months. You know, it all started like literally walking down to the post box. Funnily enough, that was my first day in the training diet. Walk to the post box, post a letter. It was about 30 meters from the front door. And then you're riding your mountain. In fact, there was this bloke called Pete who used to drive this transit van. So I'd lie flat across the back seats because I couldn't sit up. So I used to lie flat across the back seats of this van to get taken into the track. And we did that 3 times a week for about 5 months. And it's a miracle we got to the Olympics, really, let alone had to go out winning it. So yeah, that was a big achievement. That was one of them. Yeah, I think the other one was I've won one sort of pro ranked race. One.
Yeah.
It was a prologue that was about, I don't know, it was less than 2 kilometers long, John, you know, funnily enough. And
sounds perfect.
It was, yeah, it was. As soon as I saw it, I was like, here we go. There's no one chance of winning a pro road race. And it was out in the Sun Tour in Australia. And again, I was out there with a team called JLT.
Yeah.
And it's a team that I loved very much, and, you know, everything was great. And, you know, it was a massive part of my life.
No, that was a pretty neat program, like, for the longest time, because I mean, you know, now, and it might just be because I'm paying more attention, but, you know, in the States, we have one team, you know, we have Rally. That's pretty much it right now. We used to have United Healthcare. We used to have, like, what is not MetLife, but something along those lines. And then, but it seems like before JLT, it was just JLT Condor. Like, that was the team in England and in the UK. Now you have, like, what is it, Vitus, and you have the Rebel.
We had NFTO, we had a team Rally, we had Madison for a long time.
Yeah.
John, we had a really, really good UK scene on the road.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but in the last year or so, you know, coronavirus, probably more than anything, has just really killed it off. And, you know, all these,
I say social media killed ours, but that's me.
Let's not get started on that.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing this here, man. This is how I get to race. So thanks.
Yeah. What can you say? I mean, like, social media, it's one of them things I've never really had any love for.
Yeah.
again, it's my man Phil Kelly once said to me, just think of it like a knife. It can be used to nourish or it can be
Yep.
used to hurt people. And I think that's one of the things that stuck in my head
Yeah.
that he told me. And it's true, you know.
Yeah.
We all use it these days and it's unavoidable even if you wanted to.
100% it's unavoidable. I mean, it's the hours spent on, Instagram or whatever in the hotel rooms is pretty grim actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that being said, JLT Condor and winning that race was one of your highlights.
Yeah, honestly, John, it was a tough time. I mean, like literally, speaking about Ollie Wood earlier, the guy that never gave up. I was sat in track centre with him when a text message came through from John Herity, our manager, and it was there's a young lad called Jason Lowndes who just signed for the team, and that morning he'd been hit by a car and he didn't make it, and it was tough, just to hear that, not even knowing the fella, and we flew out there to Bendigo, to do a training camp there in his hometown, and we were really going to ride that Sun Tour, in part because he was, quite a big signing for us in that team, and we really believed that, we could potentially win sprint stages with him there. Anyway, and there was a lot going on at that point in time. There was, personal issues I had, and there was that was the last year that JLT ran. We were starting to get rumours in that the team wasn't going to go ahead, and like I said, for a long time that was almost as big a part of my life as the track program, and it was a tough camp for all those reasons I've just mentioned, and it was an emotional day, when we finally got to the start line, and it's only sport, man, but I wanted to win that prologue for a lot of reasons, and when we got it over the line, it was a good one, yeah. So for all those sort of reasons that I've mentioned, I think that one pro win that nobody's heard of is perhaps the most meaningful one I've got.
Well, it's interesting too, just like, because if I don't talk to you and I just read your Wikipedia, or I just somebody tells me your accomplishments, you make it look so easy, right? It's like all done so easy, and you're probably laughing to yourself that I'm saying it was so easy, because back injuries, collarbones, teams folding, like you had more outs than you had wins, which is insane. Like there was multiple times where it probably would have been easier just to hang up the bike. And so do you attribute that to a lot of the early stuff with Steve and even Phil?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I absolutely think so. Again, it's there's some amazing Michael Jordan quote out there. He's lost X amount of games and he's been trusted by his teammate to win to take the shot, at the end of the game, and lost. And, that's why he wins, because he puts himself out there, and he's prepared to fail. And yeah, you're right. When you look at that big list of races on Wikipedia, I don't know, there might be a dozen or so races that we've done well in, or, half a dozen world championships and a few Olympics that have gone well.
Yeah. I can't even count. Like it's there's a lot on here.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, John, if we had a list of the races that have cocked up, or we just haven't been there, or form's not been good, or there's been loads of world championships and never even made the start line for various reasons. And this recent Olympics is, that's what it looks like. That's what sport looks like, and I guess that's what success looks like too. 7 times out of 10, at least you're cocking it up, and you don't get what you want, and it's sports ruthless. It's setbacks, it's illness, it's injury, it's rejection, and it's getting yourself back on your bike and trying to do what you love. And again, that's not just unique to sport. I think if you want to be successful at anything, in the world of business, in the world of media, it's hard work, isn't it? And I guess it's the people that are sort of somewhat resilient to the failures.
Yeah, no, for sure.
We'll keep going.
No, for sure. I think that's awesome, man. And like I said, I don't want to keep you all morning. So I do have one more question for you. And I ask everybody this on the podcast, and, I never let anybody, there's only a few people that I give kind of, prepare. They know what they're about to get asked. But for you, I just kind of wanted to put you on the spot because you've had the opportunity to be with. I mean, hell, you've in 2004 you raced Madison with Cavendish. You've been in a team pursuit with Wiggins. You know, Geraint Thomas. Like you've had a list of amazing people and riders that you've been around and trained with. But if you could have a cup of coffee with one individual, it's any individual, dead or alive, who would that person be? And then why would you have a cup of coffee with that individual?
There's probably a couple I'd want to pick out. I tell you what, when I was a kid, I was quite into my motorsport, and my stepdad Kevin was really instrumental in my cycling career.
Yeah.
You know, he really helped me. Like, he bought my first bike and took me to my first races. But anyway, he was mad into his motorsport, and me and my brother would get up in the morning sometimes, you know, when the race is on, and the Formula One was on in Australia.
Yeah.
And, you know, we watch it at stupid o'clock in the morning. And I was always I was a big Michael Schumacher fan. You know, he'd tear around there in his big red Ferrari. And it was always like, you know, despite the fact he was German and he was usually racing a Finnish guy called Mika Hakkinen or Damon Hill, who was a British guy, I was always a Schumacher fan. And I know F1 over there, Formula One's probably not as big as NASCAR and stuff like that, but you know,
it's getting there because we have the Netflix show, so we've turned it into reality TV pretty much, and that shit we latch onto. I mean, you've known our recent president is pretty much a reality TV show, so that in itself is what we look for. So yeah, F1 is starting to kind of pick up around here.
Yeah. So Michael Schumacher was, I mean, for those of you out there that don't know him, he was, you know, the biggest name in Formula One. And he's still, many consider him the greatest talent to have ever got in a car. And, you know, he got through all those decades of the top level in F1, and then he had a skiing accident and nobody's seen him still. He's, you know, from what we understand, he's in some sort of state, you know, nobody knows.
Wow.
His family doing a good job of keeping it away from the press, but he's not alive and well as we knew him. So, you know, when you look at the F1 now, which I do all the time, I'm a bit of an avid fan. You know, all the past greats are there in the paddock, you know, as team managers or advisors or TV pundits and stuff like that. And, you know, with Michael Schumacher, it's just like there's a last piece of the puzzle that's not quite there. And I don't know, I'd just love to, I'd love to catch up with him and talk about his career, talk about his mindset, and all that.
No,
he was a fascinating guy. He was a proper winner, and I was a big fan.
No, that's super cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, and also go check out Ed's social media. He loves posting on social media. He posts all the time, but really go check out the Pursuit line and his ventures over there. And this has even got me thinking about my human performance and those kinds of things, because that's one thing that I don't have, and I always work on my own for my mental health, because I think I'm the big bad guy who can just figure it out on my own. And so sometimes you need somebody to talk to and just talk things out and hash things out. But yeah, go check that out. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Cheers.